it may concern. I am William Johnson's mother, and I know that whatever you all decide today will have a bearing on William's whole future. My sons were reared in a home where illness and trouble prevailed, and they learned that when the burden got too heavy, God always had a way to lighten the load. William struggled many years to get the education he needed to become an ordained minister. He knew what he wanted to do with his life, and he worked hard to get money to go to college and seminary. It breaks my heart to think that he might not be ordained. It hasn't been easy to accept the fact that I have a son who is a homosexual. But William has told me he is happy, and it seems to me that that is important. Ask yourselves, if William hadn't admitted his homosexuality, wouldn't you have ordained him already? I ask you to judge his qualities as a dedicated Christian and not his sexuality. Sincerely, Minnie Johnson.
I welcome this opportunity to express our position, which we believe to be the majority position of the church people of this area, on the ordination to the Christian ministry of Bill Johnson, who is an acknowledged homosexual. I think it's terribly important that we keep before us the central issue. Sometimes people are suggesting that Bill's such a nice young man that of course we should ordain him, or that he's well prepared academically. None of these things have we ever questioned. The issue is it appropriate to ordain him to the Christian ministry as a homosexual? After all, he wrote the agenda in the sense that he brought this to our attention, and therefore that makes it the central issue, and we cannot back away from it. Bill is well prepared. He has demonstrated in his work in the San Carlos Church that he relates very well to people and has been able to function in leadership and certain areas of leadership up to this point. The real issue is it right for us to ordain him into the Christian ministry? And to that question, we give an emphatic no.
Homosexuality, I think, is an abnormality, a distortion or deprivation of the normal created order of God.
Yeah.
Because I believe in procreation, which is, I think, part of God's divine order of creation. And any sex deviation that contradicts this law or the statement of Jesus made in Mark chapter 10, verses 6 through 8, is not healthy psychologically speaking, and therefore may be considered a sinful act.
I expect the concern of the people to be primarily my sexuality, and I will try to respond to that concern by putting my answers into a theological context. I expect a great concern to be that of morality, and a serious question that many people have, a question that I respect, is how can we ordain a homosexual when the assumption that we have is that homosexuality is immoral? And I intend to address myself not to the presumed immorality of homosexuality or the presumed morality of heterosexuality, but to the higher question of morality in regard to sexual relationships. Because I deeply believe that we do a great injustice to humanity if we focus in upon one orientation, one sexual orientation. And I believe we need to lift our vision to the morality of what it means to be human.
I hear a reference made to orientation. There is only one orientation. You're either oriented or you're disoriented. I want to know if he does not believe that he is disqualified by reason of his disorientation.
I believe that there are many orientations in life, and that to say that homosexuality is a disorientation is a value judgment made upon personal value systems. I believe we are all orientated to the responsible use of sexuality, which is a part of our personhood.
My views are based on the observations made by the great theologian Karl Barth, who made the following comment on this, that man's sexuality is inherent to his created nature and destiny. That men and women both know themselves only in relation to the other sex. And that homosexuality is a rejection, he says, of creatureliness and therefore an idolatry.
Human beings will find themselves in the predicament of taking a position of faith or taking a position of fear. And I have great faith that when it comes right down to a decision, that Christian men and women will make the faith position their own.
We're thinking, for example, of his counseling for young people. Say, for example, he is a counselor at Camp Cazadero and gets into rap sessions with our young people. Obviously, he would represent his own point of view on sexuality and would seem to say that homosexuality is a normal lifestyle, and this we would deny.
I had just come downstairs from teaching Sunday school, and Steve says, you got to come to see this dialogue service, you know, this guy's got to talk about, you know, homosexuals. And I said, what's it all about? And he says, well, Bill came out and said he's a homosexual. And I went, oh, really? And, but I didn't, you know, he's the first homosexual that ever came out and said he was a homosexual that I'd known. But it didn't mean, you know, I didn't turn off or anything about it.
And the first time I found out about it was at a meeting that they were having a special meeting to hear his paper for the first time for the, to see if the deacons would pass him for ordination. And I said, gee, what's this meeting all about? And John and Dorothy told me then, and it scared me at first, because being raised in San Carlos, homosexual is, you know. But I thought about it, and I thought how stupid. I've known Bill all this time, and he hasn't changed.
There's no doubt about the fact that Bill is a very sensitive and wonderful man who relates well to people, and therefore he will carry a great influence upon the people to whom he ministers. And therefore, if he has what many of us would call an abnormal sexual adjustment, this will have a strong influence on young people, particularly in families with whom he works.
What I'd like to communicate to Bill is an opportunity to dispel a very real fear on the part of parents of contamination, that their son, seeing you, will somehow be influenced to become homosexual. And this is a very real fear. It may be foolish, but it is very real.
Sexual orientation is primarily established by the age of 5 years. There might be some influences along the way, but those influences primarily touch upon expression of sexuality, not orientation. It's really a question of repression or expression.
My folks, they wondered, and they asked me a lot of questions, and they said, well, do you really think, you know, this is normal? Do you think, you know, you keep saying that, you know, he's okay, you know, he's just a regular human being. Well, you know, and I just talked to him for a while, and they said, okay, if you support the guy, you know, we're all for you.
If this ordination takes place, we are contemplating of dissociating ourselves with the association.
Did your 40-some families get together to write this letter?
The council decided that. And I have expressed my views to the conference minister that as long as he has that kind of, that caliber of people in the association, I cannot certainly attend or associate myself with them in the association meetings.
What do you mean by that caliber?
Well, people like Johnson and declared homosexuals.
The entire church, I think, will have to go through this kind of a struggle if the church is really to come to the point of receiving all men into the body of Christ.
I asked him, that you just said that homosexuality is a gift of God. Do you consider a prostitute's life and her sexuality as a gift of God? And if she came to you to be ordained, are you willing to consider it seriously and ordain her to the ministry? He paused for a few seconds and then said,
I know a lot of heterosexuals who go to houses of prostitution. I know a lot of homosexuals who are prostitutes. I know some heterosexuals who are prostitutes. I would have to take my stand in saying that it's not within me to make a judgment upon those people. Their primary responsibility lies in their relationship with God. In terms of my relationship to them as an ordained minister of the church, I believe the style of Jesus Christ himself gave us the answer to that question.
My question to you is this. Would you be willing to forego the personal pleasure of practicing homosexuality in order to receive your ordination and proceed normally with your Christian ministry?
I hear you asking the question of celibacy.
The question could be so interpreted, depending entirely upon the individual.
Mr. Mitchell, I am asking, is the United Church ready to affirm my call to the ministry and ordain me to the ordained ministry? I cannot take the vows of ordination without having done what I have done, which is to be fully honest and try to approach the altar with integrity.
All right, at this point we will vote by roll call on whether or not to ordain Bill Johnson. A yes vote says he will be ordained. A no vote says he will not be ordained. Now, is there any question in anybody's mind about how that'll go? Okay. It's a majority vote required to ordain.
Tom Walton.
Yes.
Kenneth Ross.
Yes.
Victor Morgan.
My name is Howie Blitz. I'm chairman of the Board of Deacons of the Congregational Church of San Mateo. We are not ready in our church to adopt an anything-goes attitude. We don't believe that this is in our Christian tradition, especially when homosexuality is being flaunted before us in this context of church leadership. While no one questions the rights and the qualifications of Bill Johnson, nevertheless it needs to be said that we might wish Bill Johnson loved the church more than he loves himself. I'm called to proclaim that which is against nature and God is also against the church. And I would call upon Bill Johnson to withdraw from the collision course in which he has enjoined us, that he may be free to better serve in the harmonious application of his many talents in this wide world of need other than in the ministry.
Donald Stewart.
Yes.
Francis Geddes.
Yes.
I feel that it is important that we have him in this conference to show that we can include people who are different, but who have the same goals of love and the Spirit of God. I would say that the Spirit of God really shines from Bill in his work and in his personhood.
Bob Kersey. Hugh Rayner. Philip Anderson. Reverend Von Bedekin.
I'm feeling that we will have a positive vote today. If it is not positive, I don't think that's an invalidation of my criteria as to how the decision will be made. It will simply be that I underestimate the ability of people to really move with faith into the future.
He doesn't have a call from a true church. And this again is a precedent. We have set a new precedent here. He doesn't come in under the normal procedure that most young men have to do, which is have a call from a particular church.
I disagree with the premise that you consider the issue and not the person. Bill Johnson is qualified far beyond most of the ministers that I have come in contact at conferences and meetings.
You, again, are using personality. And
I
don't think we denied Bill himself as being a very challenging personality, and it took a lot of guts to come out against the entire Christian community and say, I am
He did not
this.
come out against the entire Christian community.
No.
I don't think we should
But
discuss
we are-
personalities. I
No,
don't think
I don't
that's the
either.
point here. I think the
Perhaps
point is
we
that
have
we
no
should divide it
discussion
because you're setting a very dangerous precedent. And the next homosexual who comes along and wants to be ordained as a minister may not be any Bill Johnson. And then
Then
how
he
can you
probably won't
discriminate?
be ordained.
Number of total possible voters in the association, 151. Number of eligible voters present, 96. Number of ballots cast, 96. Number of votes yes, 62. Number of votes... Number of no votes, 34. The ordination is ordered for June 25th. You will get notice in the mail as to its program.
We're in the process of saying our yes. You're in the process of saying your yes. You have learned that to choose life means to choose persons. And so I charge you, Bill Johnson, to remember, to continue to choose life means to choose authenticity. And to somehow be authentic to both the United Church of Christ and that community, and your gay brothers and sisters, who you have already been loyal and faithful to. And so, Bill Johnson, I charge you to choose life. Remember what you have learned, and to be who you are.